And that's how dad jokes are born, because kids will laugh at any dumb thing.
And you know what? As they get older, they realize that they're bad jokes and they laugh at them being so bad sometimes.
Exactly. Post-ironic irony.
All right, we got someone up on stage here.
Yo,
Uh,
what's cracking?
how are
Hey,
you?
hey.
Not too bad. I was just trying to I'm not a debate type or even I don't dabble in too many philosophicals, that I can just sit here and ramble on some 10-letter long words or whatever to fully define my case or whatever. But
That's okay.
I'm more down to sharpen or what's the word? Dispel whatever beliefs I already have. I'm willing to go through that thought process, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And currently I believe in I've been told that what I believe is essentially panentheism, more or less.
Okay. I think usually I pronounce it pantheism. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation or not.
Is it different than that?
Yeah,
Oh, it
so
is. Okay.
panentheism is more it's more or less not God isn't necessarily everything. It's more that God is everywhere is the best way I could describe it. I'm probably not so precise on that, but I believe that's the difference. And I think the reason why I have that distinguishment or whatever, if that's a word, is that I don't think that everybody is God, right? So I think if I thought everybody was God, that would be pantheism. Whereas I'm just, what I think is that the influence of God is everywhere and has
What does
pervaded everything,
what does that
material, non-material.
Can you give an example of what that might look like?
That would be really hard. Look like?
Or just an example. That's kind of what I mean.
Okay. So I guess maybe this is a good example. If you look at an anthill, right? They're not, I guess, aware of what they look like from above and their effect on the environment around them. I guess their symbiotic relationship with the environment around them. I'm sure for an ant, they more than likely go through their day-to-day concerned with their own ant lives, right? Not fully understanding their symbiotic relationship, I guess is what I'm getting at. And when I see the different religions we have dispersed throughout the world, I think it's all in play. I think it's all on the table. For instance, whether it's good or evil, the idea of a religion as a social construct to what's the word? Give people guidelines to follow, to do things, to act in a particular manner, moral guidelines, whatever. There may be reasons for waging war or whatever that are religious based. I think it's all in play, and I think all of that is divine. It's God basically evolving creation, pushing it forward, moving it along. And say I think of it like more collectively. Like when I look at the Vatican, I see the Vatican as a like collective symbol of God. Although it may not be God, it's almost like the ideas of that group, that conscious group, came from that God, and they came together and built that symbol and that like center point to meet at, and all of that. And the Vatican is just one example, but those are everywhere. There's like Mormon temples and so on and so forth, right? There's Capitol buildings, whatever it may be. Like maybe it isn't even so much a religious thing. It's you look at a building, and a building is it houses a bunch of people collectively, and all those people are doing jobs, right? They have their own reasons why, but they're all collectively doing these jobs in these buildings, cubicles, whatever. But I guess if you think about it mechanically, like a building is like a microcontroller of some sort, right? And well, I guess that sounds kind of wild. Basically, what I'm saying is when you look at a circuit board, there's all these pathways that electrons are flowing through different microcontrollers, microprocessors, yada yada yada. There's logic gates and all of this stuff, and it just does what it does. But in reality, somebody designed it to do that. But the thing that is doing that, these electrons like aren't aware that somebody has now designed this circuit to do this. They're not aware that somebody designed, say, this transistor or this microcontroller on this circuit. And like these buildings, I'm comparing them to being like a microcontroller, a black box on some larger circuit, which we would call like roads, right? Roads are these connecting points, and people drive on them, walk on sidewalks, walk into work, and I guess we're the electrons. Just as an example, but that's kind of how I see the world.
Yeah, I hear you. So it's kind of like you're making this comparison between the ants or the circuit board. I think I like the circuit board example a little bit better. So
Yeah.
it's like these electrons are moving around on the circuit board. The processor is like a building, and the RAM is like another building, or all these other little chips are like buildings. And
Right.
the electrons don't really know, what their purpose is here. And it's kind of like people wandering through the library and then going to school and then going to their job and then going home. And like they might not really know what their purpose is here, but they're doing their thing. They're going round and round and round, whatever. So that's kind of like the comparison that I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, great. And with this comparison, you're like looking at this and you're like, well, people are going around, they're not really knowing their purpose. And it sounds like that leads you to this belief in panentheism, which is God is everywhere.
This is probably going to sound dumb, but a little bit of that and a little bit of psychedelics. So that's like kind of where I'm coming from. But that combined with just some just experiences that I've had on psychedelics, which you could very well say, well, that's something that's happening in your mind. These are like hallucinations. You're being thrown into different psychological settings and events, and you could come out of that with some different beliefs. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I interrupted you. Did you believe this before? Like, had you heard this before you did the psychedelics?
No, actually, like it maybe like in a vague way of some sort, but I never really cared to put a pin on that. Really a very shortened version of my life story, just super short, is I used to be Mormon, and I escaped all of that, and then I had like some conflicting thoughts along the way, and then I prescribed to like Christianity, And I thought, well, this is it. Like, this is the answer. I took it so seriously that I went to school for theology. And then while I was going to school for theology, I just ran into a lot of issues with the Bible, and it's just the errors in it, which is like a whole other thing. And then through that, I decided maybe God doesn't exist. I don't even know at this point, but basically I'm done with theology. And then, while I'm on psychedelics, I keep running into these very like what seem to be divine experiences.
What do you mean by that?
So like, this is gonna sound skits, but hearing like a voice talk to me or something, or try to like push my mind in a particular direction. It seems like every time I take psychedelics, it seems like the thing that pushes me to learn more about life in some way, whether it's like through mathematics or physics or an interest I have in something, it seems like it's coming from not within me. It seems like it is apart from me and influencing me to push myself. An example is hearing a voice talking to me about like Q prime, which is like I still to this day don't know what Q prime is, but I was like, what the hell is Q prime? And I'm like looking this up, and it does have an application. I still don't know enough mathematics to sit here and like pretend I know what that application is, but it did like bring me onto wanting to understand more about prime numbers. And then I went on and built just a little like web page for myself in HTML and JavaScript with functions for prime numbers and twin primes, and highlighting those in red and blue across a grid from 0 to 100,000. And before I knew it, like I was actively learning something about the behavior of prime numbers. And it turns out that like what I had actually did was something that was already done. It's called the sieve of Eratosthenes. It's blocking prime numbers by groups of 100 at a time. And so coming out of that, I know that sounds like boring or whatever, but coming out of that,
No,
and
I'm interested to hear it. In fact, I got a few questions about that. If you don't want to, if I can ask you real quick.
Sure.
If you heard that voice, that same voice, and it said something like fabric softener, do you think it would have had the same kind of significance? Does the kind of ambiguity of Q prime make it feel more more likely to be true? Why do you think that is something guiding you versus any arbitrary word?
Well, that's more of an example on like just a very it sounds very ambiguous thing, right? But in that case, I would have to have a little more like evidence behind something like fabric softener, right? However, if I heard fabric softener and then I opened my door and there was like an Amazon package sitting there, and I opened it and I found like, a case of 5 things of fabric softener sitting in a box, and it turns out the box wasn't mine, I would start asking myself some very odd questions, like even if it meant nothing, even if that's just a weird situation. But it really, that was like one example with Q prime. But another example is before I had learned about Hinduism, and I don't prescribe to the belief or anything, but before I had learned about it, I was experiencing hallucinations that were similar to things described in Hinduism of, beings with multiple arms and things like that. And then buddies of mine that also do mushrooms, experience sort of the same thing, like stuff like that. And it may not mean that, oh, Hinduism is absolutely true in its way, but after that experience, it did. I was curious, and I started learning more about it and listening to things like Alan Watts, and Alan Watts' whole take on this is kind of similar to mine, where it's like these things exist, these religions exist. They all claim, they all have some divinity claim to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is the one true way. You could very well be on your own island and just be you, and that is perfectly fine. But just after all of these experiences I've had, it seems like whether it's like mushrooms or some sort of divine sign, as I think I see it, it's always pushed me somewhere good, and it helped me push my mind further to I don't know, become a better person, or become more like thorough in the way that I think, or my arithmetic in doing things.
If
Do you think this is? Go ahead, Pierce.
If it had been pushing you in kind of the opposite direction, where it was like telling you to do things that were bad, would you still hold the belief?
I think if it was telling me to do things that I thought were bad, I just wouldn't do them, and it would probably freak me out. I'd probably think it's like, hey, maybe it's like demonic or something. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Which is like, who's to say? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Guess I don't really know.
Do you think this is a method that other people could use to come to similar conclusions? Do you think if we had everybody in this audience take the same psychedelics, they would come to similar conclusions as you?
I do think it's possible, just because I've known people on psychedelics that have come to more or less the same conclusion as me.
What happens if two people come to different conclusions? What if one person gets told to do bad things, or how do you know how do you determine who's getting the right message?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would still be attached to the belief that I have and try to like rectify it in some way, and maybe consider what if what if the information they were getting was just evil, and would I actually sit there and like try to hash this out with the person? Probably not. Like I would probably just be like, hey, maybe don't take that again. That does not work out for you. Like that's not a good idea. But as far as myself, the thoughts that I would keep to myself, I would just think, hey, maybe they were in a very impressionable state, and could have been hit with just some bad juju, just some really evil stuff. Because I think that exists as well. I think evil's out there, and I think it's just as powerful as good. Like I think it's like a balance, like 50-50. I prescribe to good. I'd rather not do evil, but I think that both things are in play. I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry if this sounds like really convoluted, but yeah, I've never really had a chance to sit
complicated.
here
There's
and
a lot of stuff to sort through.
Totally.
I got a hypothetical if you wanna do that.
Sure.
Okay. Imagine there's an alien. His name's Alan. Real nice guy. Lands his spaceship just outside your house. He's never been to Earth before. Doesn't know anything about humans. He's never met anyone. Never talked to anyone. Doing his own alien thing. Maybe he was born yesterday. Who knows? But he comes down to Earth, and he tunes into the show, and he wants to know if pantheism is true, and if God is everywhere. What would be the best way for Alan the alien to figure this situation out, to figure out what is true?
Dang, I'm not gonna lie. That's a really good. That's almost like a game breaking question. Like, man, I think I'd have to sit on that for a while. Like, because it's not like I could, just tell this guy like, well, take this thing that I take. Like, your chemistry is going to be different. Like, what it doesn't even affect him, right? Like, so obviously this Alan here is going to have to, by some other means, have to see the universe in the same way. I think it would be difficult. I think maybe what I would try to do, if this was the goal, was just give him things to consider. So maybe consider things like the likelihood that me and Alan met up in a universe, as two life forms that are separate from each other in a universe so infinite and vast. The likelihood that that could happen, I would say, even an event like that. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I had an alien like show up at my door asking me for answers, I would think that's kind of a divine event itself,
That's pretty wild, I guess, aliens
Yeah.
and stuff. For the sake of the hypothetical, let's suppose that Alan has close enough body chemistry to humans to where these drugs would affect him in the same manner. Would that affect your answer?
I guess could I don't know. Well, could you rephrase that or say that again? I
Sure.
don't think I'm following.
Let's say that Alan can take the same drugs as you do, and they affect him in the same way. He, starts tripping balls or something, whatever.
Yeah, similar
I guess there's not so
kind.
much weight. Like I don't put so much weight on like basically I just see psychedelics as like this is an easy way. It's like the easy button, right? I see that as my easy button. Whereas like, but do I think it's like absolutely necessary that that's the way? Like, no, not at all. And I also don't think that that would be like even the first route. I just think of for me as a human to consider or push my mind into these like areas of like consideration. Psychedelics makes that easier, as opposed to sitting there discussing this with somebody for hours on end as to the reason why I look at the world the way that I do.
Hmm.
Is using psychedelics a way to come to a high degree of confidence that God is everywhere?
No, um, no, like it can't be, because then it's like that's an altered state, right? Like I can't put so much weight on being in an altered state, but it's more the fact that even when I'm not on them, um,
Mhm.
life seems to have a divine fingerprint to it that it just seems, I don't know.
What
Yeah, it just seems divine, like even in itself without psychedelics. So I don't need them either.
if God is everywhere is like this one explanation for um, you know what you're what you're seeing and your experiences perhaps. What is the next best explanation?
The next best explanation, I think, would be math. I think it would be math and physics to like just the nth degree.
Like
But
natural explanations? Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, pretty much. Like,
Okay.
but I think why I don't I don't fall on that is, how do I put this? Like I'm already aware we live in a universe that is governed by, math and physics, right? Like that it is what it is. But I think that doesn't necessarily like mean that because math and physics are there to, I guess, define the universe, God would be apart from it. I think that is it. Like, I think for those things to be there and do what they're doing is divine. The idea that we have like dimensions beyond the reality we live in, like the third dimension, the idea that in order for something to exist in a lower order, a lower dimension, it had to be brought forth from a higher dimension. Just that alone, yeah, sure, you're speaking in matters of like math and physics, but I think that's still equally a divine fingerprint. I don't know if that makes sense. I've never had to say that before, but I think that's like the best way I could describe that.
A question I have for you. If Alan the alien was not convinced, like that, just the drugs didn't do it for him, and the propositions and the things he read just didn't lead him to that conclusion. What values do you think are so important from that worldview that you would want Alan to try to maintain or consider at least?
Consider? I think just the idea that like no matter what happens, just be, and like everything's gonna be all right, I guess. Like, I know that sounds really like woo woo, but yeah, like from my position, that is how I see things. I see it as like good or evil, whatever the event is. I could get swallowed by a shark or whatever, right? Like, I see that as just a experience, and when I am no longer in a physical body, so be it. It's over. Everything's all right. Like, for instance, when, if you don't mind me asking, like, what year were you born?
I remember more.
You can give me a fake year. Okay, yeah. Let's just say you're born in like 92. You basically yourself in 1991 were perfectly fine, no problem in the world. Like, you weren't here, but you were fine. And when you die, it's like the same thing. It's the universe is just going to keep churning, everything's going to like continue to run its course. But whether you're in a physical body or not, like everything's going to be okay, I guess.
It sounds
everything keeps going.
Sounds like you would, if Alan wasn't convinced by these methods of determining that God is everywhere, it sounds like you would offer him comfort. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess I would. But I'd also like push him to like continue to, whatever burning questions he has, to like continue to pursue them. I mean, the universe is pretty crazy. I don't even think like my position as it stands today is what's the word, like the end point, because it could very well be possible that, you know, just because I think that God is present in all the universe, I mean, well, what about the case for multiple universes? Now what? Right? Like there's still a lot like to evolve with that like thought process, but it's basically where I'm at now.
This might be a little bit of an assumption on my part, so correct me if I'm off base. I very well might be. Since you would offer comfort to Alan if he didn't come to, this conclusion, is it safe to assume that if you were to lose this belief that God is everywhere, that it might be something that's maybe stressful or uncomfortable for you?
Yeah, I could see where you're going with that. Yeah, if I'm being honest with myself, if I did lose that, the idea of it being all for nothing is very uncomfortable, for sure. So yeah, I guess that's like a little bit of my own like bias in there. I definitely do think that for me to go through the world, it is more comfortable to see a bad thing happen or a good thing happen and know that I have the potential to like be a light to somebody in a particular situation, or like just be a good person. And I know like an atheist can separate that, right? An atheist can be like, well, I can be a good person without any sort of belief in God, and that may be true. I would say my weight in putting so much weight in divinity allows me to check myself at like every second of like an interaction, right? Like it's basically, I do sit there and almost actively am sure that whoever I'm talking to, I'm doing it for the better of God. Like, and I wouldn't want to do them any wrong, basically. I would want to be sure that like, in my case, like I want to do good things, that they get to experience good things and feel comforted, and like they're not suffering. If I can alleviate suffering, I think I'm doing my job in some way, or doing what this God would want, or at least whatever a portion of its personality would want, or whatever. But I am aware that that isn't necessarily like, what's the word? That doesn't make me any different than like a Christian, right?
I wonder if that would make you different than most people. I think most people might agree with that. You think so?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's a good point.
Cool. With that being said, if you were to reduce your confidence, or maybe not even believe it anymore, would like, since you wouldn't be that different than others, you kind of have the same goals. Would you find some comfort in that?
Man, that's almost like like, yeah, it's like a really psychological thing. I think if I felt that there wasn't a divine purpose of some sort, I think I would just not care about anything. I think I would just like, does it really matter almost? And I know that sounds like oh well, so you can only have, say, morals, right? Like you can only have morals if you believe in God. Like it does sound similar to that. I don't know.
Earlier,
That's a
you were
tough-
saying things like you'd want people to uh, see light or feel the kind of light that you were talking about. You wanted people to feel value. You have human subjective experiences. Does that part in the description of what you were doing is still there, right?
Yeah, like let's say I felt that this thing doesn't exist at all. I would still want good for people. Like I would still want those things for people. I would, but I think I would. I may be more forceful about outcomes. So, like, how do I put this? If let's say there's no divine consequence, right? Like just like that as an idea. If there's no divine
Like it
consequence,
in a Christian God way, or
then you might
I'm sorry,
uh
I'm cutting up.
how do I put this? Like I think about like kind of like hacktivism, right? Like things like hacktivism. You know, like hacking, but like
Mhm.
activism, that whole thing, hacktivism, cool.
Mhm.
Like Mr. Robot type thing.
There you go. Like stuff like that. Like I think if there wasn't um s- a a god of some sort involved, I would see it as, hey, look, bad situation. Here's the solution. Could lose some people in the process, but this needs to happen. It is for the better, but it's okay to lose this due to the greater end. I guess I could see something like that, but that's not where I'm at now. It's hard to say. It's hard to talk on something like a position that I'm not actually in.
Hmm.
But I would imagine that if I didn't have so much weight into this idea of a all-pervasive God of some sort, uh, I may be a little more loose and forceful about outcome, like determining outcome, how it gets done, yada yada yada. Doesn't mean I would like surely wouldn't want to go like full blown like skits evil or something, but that I think that's if I'm just being honest with myself, I think I would drop some of the moral obligations that I have.
Hmm.
I guess the best way I could put that is I see the universe as like its whole operation is divine, like it's just flowing, and all of these events are uh, over some watchful eye, I guess, right? So it's like, would I really want to sit here and be some hacktivist and potentially like also ruin some lives in the process or something and make a wrong move and run the risk of doing that? I would basically be how do I put this, like not like disrespecting, but um like being abusive to this god, to this god's like creation,
Hmm.
I guess.
Now we've asked you a good number of questions here, and
Yeah, totally. This is like, yeah,
no,
this has been a while. My bad.
yeah, great. Um, at the risk it being a long answer, but if you can, just try to keep this short. Um, so Alan the aliens ask you all these questions, heard all this. and he's still not convinced right away yet at this point. What do you think Alan, having all these questions here, is missing to understand what you understand?
Missing?
Yeah, I mean, what is he not considering
Oh.
that's not putting him in the perspective you have?
Yeah, I don't think I would know. I don't think I'd be the one to know that. Like,
What
I
would be
think
his next
if
step then? Go ahead, say your thought.
like I think if anybody thinks they're gonna like uh have some foolproof way of like say converting somebody, right? Like I just don't think I don't know. Like I'm okay with the
Yeah.
fact that he could walk away from that situation being like, this guy is fucking retarded, man. I'm hopping back in my spaceship, I'm taking off, I'm getting out of here. Earth is crazy. You know, does his own
You might say
thing.
that either way.
Yeah. Like,
Earth is crazy no matter what. All right. Do you shoot? I mean, what's a compass, like a general direction? What do you think his next kind of step would be to get to fully to understand better where your perspective is?
maybe a way to put this is like embracing uh collective movements of some sort, like
Mhm.
collective goals, collective I think things that are like naturally collective, I guess, are like a part of that divine fingerprint. You know, obviously it doesn't mean everything that's collective. Say there's a some freaking like cult or something, right? Like probably not a good idea, but
Mhm.
embracing like that, hey, maybe it's okay to work with a group of a couple hundred people and do these selfless acts of work to accomplish a goal, and maybe consider that the fact that you could do that collectively in the way that you do so well could be divine in nature, and the fact that it's worked like that for so long could be divine. And if you don't believe that, then that's also fine as well.
Neat. Somebody write that down for me. Text it to me here in a little bit. I want to chew on it.
Okay, well, yeah, all right, but
Juturna.
dude, thanks though.
Juturna?
This was like a freaking I'm not gonna lie, that was a workout, dude.
Yeah. It was
Anyway,
fun. It was some neat perspectives to consider on our part and to try to understand. I know Alan the Alien. I mean, he got some interesting things to think about.
I'll dip, but yeah, dude, thanks again.
One last thing before we let you go. Were you able to reflect on your belief and the reasons for your belief?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I was about to go to sleep after this. I'm probably not gonna go to sleep for like another 2
Oh.
hours.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I'm chilling. It's the weekend, baby. I'm chilling. But yeah, I'll definitely be thinking about it.
Cool.
All right.
But yeah, thanks again.
Let us
Peace
know what
out.
you
All right.
find out.
Hell yeah.